There are 6 common mistakes, at the very least, that people make when starting a carnivore diet or keto diet for the first time. And we're going to go over them in brief each, because the point of this channel and all the other channels like this are not to boost our own egos or anything. It's to help you be successful, to find the same success that most of us have found with doing a carnivore or a ketogenic diet. And these are all commonly embraced or commonly fallen into traps that people find because, as it will turn out, there's a lot of misinformation out there. And these are not complicated diets to do. Anybody can have a successful carnivore or keto diet. But these are 5, or in this case 6, common mistakes. And we'll have other people put some in the comments below. I'll probably do a follow-up to this because, frankly, there's a lot of mistakes people make doing these diets. So let's dive into this. The first is consuming dairy. And I don't mean butter. We'll put an asterisk next to butter. The classic carnivore diet is beef, butter, bacon, eggs. Butter is in there. Some people can't do butter. Some people are so sensitive to the proteins and trace sugars that are even in butter, which usually amount to far less than a gram in most normal butters, that they slow down or stall out their weight loss, or they have the inflammation that causes them whatever problems they're trying to combat with a carnivore or ketogenic diet. So they're consuming dairy, they're consuming cheese, they're eating, they think, well, I hear that you can have dairy. You can, some people can. So they think I can have it, so I'm going to, and I hear that you're supposed to go for raw dairy as much as you can. So they go and buy raw milk, raw kefir, raw cheeses, what have you. And they find that whatever their goals are, they're not meeting them. They're not getting the results they wanted, at least not initially. They have that initial sort of body flushing weight loss that happens from the loss of water and the metabolic changes, and then it stops dead in their tracks, or they get some improvement on their Hashimoto's or things, and then it stops, sometimes even reverses. Dairy can be one of the great banes of a carnivore or keto diet. So if you run into this problem and you're eating, you're loving your cheddar cheese, cut the dairy out. And if you get down to just plain butter and you're still having the problem, either replace the butter with like lard or tallow, or use ghee, which is clarified butter. It's had all the proteins and sugar scraped out through a process. You can make it at home. There are plenty of easy instruction videos online to make it at home. And avoid plant oils if you're on a carnivore diet. They don't have a place on a carnivore diet. I know a lot of people love some plant oils, but we'll get to that here in a second. But the second common mistake is consuming artificial sweeteners. There is one of the big debates in the carnivore space and keto space is, should you drink coffee and tea or not? And I am firmly in the camp of, if you like your coffee, you can have your coffee. If it doesn't harm you, you can still have it. There are some people it undermines their effort, so you shouldn't have it, obviously. I'm also of the mind that most everyone should try a strict carnivore beef, butter, bacon, eggs, maybe a tiny amount of fish here and there, and salt diet and nothing else, including caffeinated things, for some time. I gave coffee up for 7 months. I added it back in and immediately felt my mental health improve, my clarity improve, my sleep quality improve, my exercise quality improve, everything improved, all my markers. So coffee stayed. But I did that as an experiment for myself. Not everybody, I don't think other people should make that decision for you, other than to say you should try it. But here we get to artificial sweeteners. It's pretty easy. Once you have coffee, well, maybe you want to take that edge off a little bit, so you add some kind of sweetener. And what's the most commonly available sweeteners for people? These are going to be sucralose, aspartame, the things in diet soft drinks, Coke Zero, Pepsi Zero. Those things are enormously popular, and they have a veritable cocktail of artificial sweeteners in them. And overconsumption of those things can stop your weight loss, or can stop your improvement of your biomarkers that you're looking for. So those things are nasty. They're best avoided. I know I'm just basically telling you, you got to stop drinking the diet soda if you're drinking those still. Once in a great while treat or crutch to get you through a moment when you need some caffeine, maybe. I'll leave you to decide that. Probably best avoided altogether. Artificial sweeteners are pretty much as bad as the real thing, except they don't, in theory, make you fat, but even then the science seems to really not even back that claim. So just avoid them altogether if you can. If you can't, at least reach for something a little closer to natural, like monk fruit extract. Lakanto makes some drops, and they come in a tiny little container that you can easily fit in a purse or in your car or in a backpack or something. And you can take them with you on the road if you need them. But otherwise, please avoid artificial sweeteners. They're bad. They should be avoided. They will wreak havoc on your insulin and your insulin responses. They'll wreak havoc on your gut health. Just avoid them. And brings me to the other thing you should avoid, which are condiments. Most condiments are loaded with sugar. Most of them are loaded with seed oils. I sometimes see people in carnivore social media spaces asking, well, what about mayonnaise? If you really need mayonnaise, there are recipes for bacon grease mayonnaise. You can make it yourself. Plenty of people do. They say it's delicious. I never have. It sounds weird to me, I'll be honest with you. But plenty of people do. There are things you can have that are sort of alternatives to condiments. Like, for instance, you can make a hollandaise sauce or a béarnaise sauce that are basically like 99% carnivore. People will quibble with you about the, tablespoon of lemon juice that goes into hollandaise sauce, but you can get a béarnaise sauce instead, which is made with vinegar. And they taste almost the same. Wonderful alternative to condiments. And they're made with eggs. The main ingredient are eggs and butter. So you're going to get lots of vitamin D and lots of the super nutrients that are all loaded in egg yolks. But condiments are seed oil, almost always. Like mayonnaise, a lot of mustards have seed oils in them. I know a lot of you are fans of mustard, and if you're talking about the basic yellow mustard that you put on classically on a hot dog, if you need your mustard, I'm not going to argue with you with it. It's not really worth it. Once in a while, it probably is okay, but go look at the label. If you're buying condiments, read the labels. Always read the labels. You're going to find oftentimes sugar or canola oil, vegetable oils, meaning seed oils, have been added to the condiments to improve their flavor. I know the idea that someone putting sugars in mustard sounds absurd, but go look at the mustard section. There's tons of mustards aside from yellow mustard, and a lot of them have sugar and seed oils added. And that's not even to mention ketchup, steak sauces, or things. These things add sugar. If you are not getting the results you're wanting, but you're still putting that A1 on your steak, that's the first thing you really should cut out. Very first thing. I mean, the stuff is just a vehicle for sugar. You're candying your steak when you eat that stuff. And I love a good steak sauce too, but I don't consume it anymore. The next one, too much processed meats. I know there are social media influencers in the carnivore space, veterans who will tell you that if that's all you can eat, you are still in a better position than the vast majority of people out there, because even if you've adopted what can be called a dirty carnivore diet by eating bologna and hot dogs and Vienna sausages and all those things, that you're still better off than you were eating a standard American diet. I will grant that argument. I will not argue that. But if you're not achieving the results you want and you're eating hot dogs and bologna and all this stuff, this goes back to those labels. Read the labels again. What are in those things? I'm not talking about nitrates and nitrites. Those are the least of your concerns. These things have dextrose in them. Those are corn sugars. Okay, it's just corn syrup by another name. They've got binding ingredients that are carbohydrate heavy, and they've got a bunch of artificial junk. If you're new to my channel, I often talk about processed foods and how evil they are. The obesity crisis in the Western world is almost certainly, at least heavily influenced, heavily mitigated, or heavily caused by an increase in processed food consumption. Stay out of the frozen food section. Stay out of that whole middle section of the store unless you absolutely have to buy things. You live in America's heartland like I do, and you need food on hand in case there's, 3 feet of snow and you can't get out of the house for a few weeks. Okay, I understand that, but even there you can buy canned meat. Spam exists, and it's still better than most of that other stuff, but it should only be eaten in an emergency. Really, the processed meats, it's not because, the claims that people in the world make. I'm just telling you they contain sugar. They contain seed oils. They contain all sorts of junk that is not proper, but not part of a proper human diet. It should be avoided at all costs, unless that's all you can afford to eat, or it was a once-in-a-while treat. 5 is going to sound a little weird, but I have an underlying philosophy here, and my one critique of the carnivore world seems to be, although it seems to be getting away from that now, is that there is a one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to advice, and I think that's an error. So do not assume that one size fits all. There are people, for example, who can eat until they are so stuffed like it's every day's Thanksgiving, and they will lose the body fat, and they'll be quite happy. Although I don't know how you eat until you get to the point where you're falling asleep. while maintaining a normal work schedule, but there are people who do it and they thrive. But that's definitely not everybody. We have seen this so many times, people in comment sections of videos and in social media groups asking all the big influencers, I tried this advice of eating until I was beyond stuffed, or even till I was satisfied and I'm getting fat. I've seen enough people to know that that's happening. And when you question them, they're not eating dairy, they're not dumping a bunch of sugary sauces on things. They're doing what on paper looks like is a proper carnivore diet. And so either they're leaving information out or eating till they're satisfied isn't going to work for them to achieve their goals. It's part of the larger one-size-fits-all sort of approach that we have right now, because the carnivore community is still relatively new when it comes to this. People's metabolic conditions, people's lives in general are unique. They have unique situations, and they need to be really treated, in a different way. So you may have to do things that are different and even like go against a bit of the carnivore orthodoxy here to achieve the goals you want. And you can do it without attacking the carnivore influencers, without attacking the well-respected people who do wonderful work in the carnivore community, because your situation is just different. You need to do different things. It happens. For example, to lose body fat, I need to restrict. My hormonal signaling for being satisfied is so broken that I will not lose the extra body fat unless I restrict the amount I eat. Carnivore is an easier way to do it because you stay full longer. It is what it is. And 5, if you've been watching my videos for a long time, you will not be surprised to see this one. A mistake people make is getting advice from so-called carnivore or keto social media groups. I don't mean YouTube channels. I mean Facebook groups, mostly Reddit and a few other places. You will get all sorts of advice. You get weird, bizarro world advice saying, well, obligate carnivore animals in the wild, when they take down an animal, they go right for the stomach to get those tasty greens, so we should be eating them too. Well, one, I am not a lion. I don't care what lions eat. I'm a human being. And there doesn't seem to be much evidence that we need to eat that stuff. We can eat that stuff. That doesn't mean we should. But beyond that, the carnivore diet is a diet with a name that was given to it because it's essentially good marketing. It was called zero carb before that, and probably had a different name before that. And it's a diet that has a specific protocol, and it should be generally followed. Yes, tweaked to meet individual needs, because one size does not fit all, but in general, once you start adding in the other things and trying to start calling it hyper carnivore or whatever, you start drifting into other areas. And those diets, those variations are probably fine. They work fine for the people who do them, I'm sure, but it creates confusion. And the reason I say get away from those social media groups is pretty straightforward. They are filled with people who are trying to derail you. They don't want this diet to take off. They believe it's dangerous. Maybe it comes from a good place. They think that you're going to cause more harm than good to yourself by doing carnivore. So what do? They try to tell you a proper carnivore diet, because lions will, sometimes eat the grass and leaves that are inside the digestive system of the gazelle. Well, that means you should eat a salad periodically. Well, welcome to keto, because that's not what you're doing when you do that. We should call things what they are, and you should avoid areas where you're going to get a lot of bad advice. And that begins with Facebook carnivore groups, unfortunately, because they're all pretty much unmoderated. There are very few of them that actually are seriously moderated to remain as carnivore groups. So there you go. 6 mistakes people make when starting a carnivore diet. How about some others? I know some of you mentioned salt and electrolytes. Yes, those are all things. Let me know in the comments what other issues people have. And if you're having issues with your carnivore diet, don't be afraid to ask in the comments. Someone knowledgeable will respond to you to help you out. You get better advice from the comment section of YouTube videos than you will on Facebook, unfortunately. Let me know in the comments what you thought of this. Please like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. As does sharing this in social media. That helps a lot too. I'm Anthony Stein, the Practical Carnivore, and thanks for watching.